What happens when the person you underestimate holds all the power? Amelia Carter, an unassuming black woman, walks into the first-class line at a bustling airport, holding a ticket that should grant her every privilege. But when her path is blocked, humiliation ensues, and assumptions are made. What starts as a routine denial spirals into a series of revelations that will shake an entire airline to its core. What secrets lie behind her calm demeanor, and who is the mysterious lawyer she summons? The answer will leave you speechless. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe. The bustling terminal of Denver International hummed with activity, but Amelia Carter moved with quiet purpose toward the first-class check-in counter. Her black designer bag swung lightly by her side as she handed over her ticket. The gate agent, Rick, glanced at the ticket with a smirk before frowning. "Ma'am, this doesn't look right." Amelia tilted her head. "Doesn't look right?" Her tone was calm, but her raised brow challenged his words. "This isn't the kind of ticket you'd see in first class," Rick added, holding it up as though it might dissolve under scrutiny. "It might be better if you check economy." A sharp laugh rang out behind her. Karen Porter, a woman with perfectly curled blonde hair and a voice that cut like glass, stood with her arms crossed. "First class? Oh, honey, please. That's not for you." Amelia turned slowly, her eyes narrowing but her expression controlled. "And why is that?" Karen waved dismissively. "We all know what's going on here. Some people will do anything for attention, even fake their way into places they don't belong." Rick seemed emboldened. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I'll have to call security. This ticket doesn't look legitimate." "Security?" Amelia asked, her tone calm but her words sharp. "I'm standing here peacefully with a valid ticket. Scan it if you're so concerned." Rick hesitated, glancing at Karen as if seeking approval. "Let's not make this a bigger issue than it needs to be." Karen chimed in again. "Oh, let them. I'd love to see how this plays out." Amelia's lips pressed into a thin line, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she calmly pulled out her phone and dialed. Her voice was steady. "This is Amelia Carter. I need assistance at gate 14. Rick's smirk faltered as the tone of her voice cut through the air like steel. "Ma'am," Rick said, attempting to regain control, "while we sort this out, I'll need you to step aside." "No," Amelia said, her voice suddenly firm. "I'll wait right here until you scan my ticket, or until someone with real authority arrives." Karen let out an exaggerated gasp. "Real authority? Sweetheart, the only authority you'll see is security dragging you out of here." A uniformed officer approached, his hand resting on his radio. "What's the problem here?" "She's causing a scene," Rick said quickly. "Fake ticket. First-class line." The officer glanced at Amelia, but before he could speak, her phone buzzed. Without missing a beat, Amelia answered, "Yes. I'll wait." She hung up and crossed her arms. The officer frowned. "Ma'am, we'll need to check your belongings while we verify your identity." "Go ahead," Amelia replied, stepping aside. Karen's smug smile grew as the officer opened Amelia's bag, but it faded instantly when he pulled out a thick, official-looking folder. The bold lettering across the top read, "Carter Holdings, Major Shareholder Agreement." Rick's mouth opened, but no words came out. Karen, wide-eyed, stammered, That can't be real." Amelia's gaze locked on Karen. "What part of it surprises you more? The fact that it's real or that it belongs to someone like me?" Before Karen could respond, Rick's radio crackled. "Attention, Gate 14. Priority clearance arriving for Amelia Carter. Prepare immediate accommodations." Rick's face went pale. "Priority clearance? For her?" Karen sputtered, her voice losing its venom. This must be a mistake. There's no way." Amelia looked at her watch, her calm demeanor unshaken. "I hope whoever's coming gets here soon. I don't like being delayed." Within moments, a group of suited individuals strode into the gate area, their presence commanding attention. The leader, a tall man with a polished demeanor, stepped forward. Ms. Carter, we deeply apologize for this inconvenience. We've prepared everything for your flight. Shall we escort you to your jet? Karen and Rick froze in place, their smug expressions wiped clean. Amelia allowed herself a faint smile. Not just yet. There's something I need to address here first. The room fell silent as the realization of who she was began to sink in, and the weight of their actions settled heavily on the air. The air was thick with tension as Amelia Carter stood at gate 14, her calm composure starkly contrasting the stunned expressions around her. Karen's face flushed a deep red, and Rick looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. The group of suited individuals waited for Amelia's next move, but she held up a hand, stopping them mid-step. Not yet, Amelia said coolly. Her voice, measured and unwavering, commanded attention. Before I board, I'd like to ensure the situation is handled properly. Karen crossed her arms, though her confidence had visibly waned. Properly? This is ridiculous. They've already apologized. Can we move on? Amelia turned to her, her gaze piercing. Move on? After being humiliated in public and treated like I don't belong? I don't think so. Karen opened her mouth to retort, but before she could speak, the sound of clicking heels echoed through the terminal. A tall woman in a sharp navy blue suit approached, her briefcase swinging at her side. Her presence was electric, and the onlookers instinctively parted to make way. Ms. Carter, the woman said, her voice firm yet respectful. She extended a hand. Samantha Reeves, your attorney. I came as soon as I got your call. Karen gasped audibly. A lawyer? You called a lawyer for this. Samantha didn't even glance at Karen. Instead, she turned to Rick and the officers standing nearby. Let me make this very clear, she began, pulling a thick file from her briefcase. Ms. Carter is not only a paying customer, but also a major shareholder in this airline. What you've done here isn't just unprofessional, it's discriminatory. And it's illegal. Rick stammered, his confidence crumbling. I didn't know. I was just following protocol. Protocol? Samantha echoed, raising an eyebrow. Does your protocol include publicly humiliating a customer, refusing to verify a ticket, and allowing a random passenger to hurl insults unchecked? The officer shifted uncomfortably. We were just trying to de-escalate, Samantha cut him off. De-escalate? By accusing Miss Carter of fraud and threatening to search her belongings without cause. She turned to the group of suited men standing behind Amelia. You represent this airline, correct? The leader, a middle-aged man with a perfectly knotted tie, stepped forward. Yes, I'm Edward Grant, Chief Operations Officer. We deeply regret what's happened here. Regret isn't enough, Samantha snapped. This isn't an isolated incident. Ms. Carter has been subjected to this kind of treatment repeatedly at your airline. I have records of complaints, ignored emails, and footage that paints a very clear picture of systemic discrimination. Karen let out a nervous laugh. You can't be serious. This is all over a little misunderstanding. Amelia's gaze fixed on Karen. Misunderstanding? You accused me of faking my way into first class and called me out in front of everyone. That's not a misunderstanding, it's malice. Karen's confidence cracked completely, and she began to shrink back, but Samantha wasn't done. To be clear, Ms. Carter has every right to sue this airline and its employees for what's transpired here today. The damage to her reputation alone warrants immediate legal action. Edward Grant raised his hands in a placating gesture. We're prepared to take full responsibility and ensure this never happens again. Please, let's discuss this further in private. Amelia's expression remained neutral. No, we'll handle it right here. She looked at Samantha. Proceed. Samantha nodded and opened her file. Effective immediately, we're filing a formal discrimination complaint with the Department of Transportation. Additionally, We're requesting that all staff involved in this incident, including Mr. Rick here, be placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Rick's face turned, ghostly pale. Administrative leave? But Karen tried to interject. This is outrageous. Samantha glanced at her, her tone icy. As for you, Ms. Porter, your actions today will also be included in this report. The airline has policies about disruptive passengers, and I'm sure they'll be thrilled to review your behavior. Karen's jaw dropped, but no words came out. Edward Grant stepped forward again. Ms. Carter, please. Let us make this right. Amelia tilted her head. You'll have your chance. But first, I want everyone here to understand that what happened today wasn't just a mistake. It was a reflection of a much deeper issue. Fix it or I will. As she spoke, several passengers pulled out their phones, recording the confrontation. The scene had already begun to spread across social media, and the murmurs in the crowd grew louder. Samantha closed her briefcase with a decisive snap. We'll be in touch, she said to Edward. Turning to Amelia, she added, shall we? Amelia nodded, her composure intact. As she and Samantha walked toward the private jet terminal, the weight of their words hung heavily in the air, leaving Rick, Karen, and the others in stunned silence. Amelia Carter and her attorney Samantha Reeves strode toward the private jet terminal, leaving a shaken crowd behind. The tension from the confrontation still simmered in the air, but Amelia's calm composure betrayed none of the storm brewing inside her. As they reached the quiet luxury of the terminal, Samantha leaned in. We've made a strong statement, but expect blowback. People like Karen don't just vanish. They retaliate. Amelia offered a faint smile. Let them try. Just then, Samantha's phone buzzed. She frowned, reading the screen. You're trending. Hashtag Amelia Carter is blowing up. Amelia glanced at the screen. Video snippets of the incident were already going viral. Supportive comments flooded in, but scattered among them were sharp barbs and accusations. Entitled billionaire playing the victim card. Bet she staged this for attention. Here we go, another lawsuit-happy activist. Samantha's face hardened. The internet can be cruel, but this is expected. Don't let it. Before she could finish, a loud commotion erupted behind them. They turned to see two uniformed airport security officers rushing toward them, flanked by a man in a dark suit. Ms. Carter, the suited man called, his voice firm but polite. We need a moment of your time. Samantha stepped in front of Amelia. Who are you and what do you want? Matthew Bryce, head of airport operations. The man replied, flashing a badge. There's been a formal complaint lodged against Ms. Carter for disrupting airport operations and refusing to comply with security protocols. Samantha narrowed her eyes. A complaint? From whom? Bryce hesitated, but then motioned toward a figure emerging from the shadows. Corin Porter. Karen's smirk was back, her confidence restored. You think you can humiliate me and walk away? She sneered. Think again. Amelia folded her arms. This is desperate even for you. Karen's voice rose, drawing the attention of nearby staff and travelers. Desperate? You caused chaos at my gate. I was forced to file a report to protect myself and everyone else from your baseless accusations. Baseless? Samantha stepped forward, her tone icy. I have a file of documented incidents against this airline, including today's blatant discrimination, and footage that shows you instigating this entire mess. Bryce cleared his throat. Regardless, the complaint means Ms. Carter's movements must be reviewed by airport security. Reviewed? Samantha echoed. This is harassment. It's protocol, Bryce replied smoothly. We need to verify that Ms. Carter isn't using her shareholder status to bypass standard procedures. Amelia's jaw tightened. She saw what this was, a calculated attempt to undermine her. This is a stall tactic, she said, her voice calm but cutting. Karen's hoping to intimidate me. It won't work. Karen leaned closer, her smirk venomous. We'll see about that. People like you don't scare me. The words hung in the air, loaded with thinly veiled malice. Amelia took a step forward, her voice low but powerful. People like me? Karen's smirk faltered for a moment before she doubled down. Oh, you know exactly what I mean. Before Samantha could respond, another man entered the scene, Edward Grant, the COO. His face was tight with frustration. Ms. Porter, you've done enough damage for one day. Karen's confidence wavered. I'm just exercising my right. Grant cut her off. Your actions today are being reviewed internally, and I suggest you step away before you make things worse. Karen hesitated, her confidence crumbling again. You'll regret this, she spat, glaring at Amelia before storming off. Amelia turned to Grant. You allowed this to happen. You built a system that enables people like her. Grant sighed, his tone conciliatory. I know, and I take full responsibility. We're prepared to issue a public apology and make immediate changes to our policies. Samantha wasn't satisfied. And what about the bogus complaint from your head of operations? Grant frowned, glancing at Bryce. That complaint is overstepping. It'll be withdrawn immediately. Bryce stiffened, but nodded begrudgingly. Understood. As the group dispersed, Samantha turned to Amelia. They're scrambling, but Karen's not the only problem. Someone higher up gave Bryce the green light to harass you. This isn't over. Amelia's gaze hardened. It never is. But I didn't come this far to back down now. Amelia and Samantha exited the terminal and stepped into the private lounge designated for VIP clients. The luxurious decor and serene ambience stood in stark contrast to the chaos and hostility they had just faced. But neither woman was at ease. Samantha paced as she scrolled through her phone. I've flagged the complaint Karen filed. It's full of inaccuracies and won't hold up, but, she trailed off, her expression grim. But what? Amelia asked, her voice calm yet expectant. There's something bigger happening here, Samantha said, showing Amelia her screen. Dozens of emails and social media messages had flooded in since the incident went viral. Among the outpouring of support were anonymous threats. You don't belong here. Stay in your place, or we'll put you there. If you make a move, you'll regret it. Amelia studied the messages, her expression unreadable. Anonymous hate, she said quietly. It's nothing new. Samantha frowned. Maybe, but this isn't just angry trolls. Someone in the airline is trying to silence you. Karen's stunt, Bryce's interference, it's all too coordinated. Before Amelia could respond, the lounge door opened. Edward Grant, the COO, stepped in, his face pale and drawn. He carried a tablet in one hand, holding it as if it were a live grenade. Ms. Carter, Ms. Reeves, he began, his tone measured, we need to talk. Samantha folded her arms. About the bogus complaint? Or the discrimination your staff showed my client? Neither, Grant said, glancing around as if ensuring no one else was listening. It's something more serious. He placed the tablet on the table, tapping the screen. A video began to play. The grainy footage showed Amelia and Samantha at the gate during the earlier confrontation. The audio was muted, but captions scrolled across the bottom. Entitled CEO Disrupts Flight Operations. Demands Special Treatment. Using race to deflect from her own arrogance. Passengers were terrified by her behavior. Amelia's jaw tightened, but her voice was steady. Where did this come from? Grant sighed. We don't know. It was uploaded anonymously to multiple platforms an hour ago and has already racked up millions of views. It's a calculated smear campaign. Samantha's voice was sharp. And you're only just telling us now? This didn't come out of nowhere. Grant hesitated, then lowered his voice. There's a faction in the airline that's resistant to change, particularly when it comes to diversity initiatives. They've been working behind the scenes to undermine me and, by extension, anyone associated with reform. Amelia leaned forward. You're saying this isn't just about me? Grant nodded. It's bigger than you. Karen and Bryce They're pawns. Someone higher up wants to send a message. Stay in your place or face the consequences. Samantha's eyes narrowed. Do you know who's behind it? Grant shook his head. Not yet. But whoever it is, they're well connected. They've been planting false narratives, pulling strings, and using people like Karen to escalate situations. Amelia sat back, her expression contemplative. Let me guess. This faction doesn't just dislike reform. They fear it. People like me, in positions of power, threaten their control. Grant nodded. Exactly. And the more visible you are, the harder they'll push back. Samantha's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, her face hardening. Amelia, there's a new development. The anonymous account posting that video just leaked your personal email address and phone number. Amelia's calm demeanor finally cracked. They're doxing me? Not just you, Samantha said grimly. They've included a list of people associated with you, lawyers, staff, even your family. Grant looked genuinely alarmed. This is crossing into dangerous territory. If this escalates, it won't. Amelia said firmly, her voice regaining its steel. She stood, her presence commanding. They think they can scare me into silence, but they've underestimated me. If they're coming for me, I'll meet them head on. Samantha exchanged a glance with Grant. We'll need a plan. Legal action, public statements, increased security, everything. Amelia nodded. Do it. And while we're at it, I want to know exactly who's behind this. Every name, every connection. If they want to fight, I'll give them one. Grant hesitated. Are you sure? This could get messy. Amelia's gaze was unwavering. It already is. Now it's my turn to clean it up. Amelia Carter sat in the private lounge, her phone vibrating on the table like an unrelenting alarm. She ignored the stream of notifications, some messages of support, others filled with venom. Across from her, Samantha Reeves scanned through documents on her laptop, her expression a mix of focus and unease. Here's the problem, Samantha said, pushing her laptop toward Amelia. That viral video? It's not just gaining traction, it's being deliberately boosted. Someone wants the world to see it. Amelia leaned forward, her brow furrowing. Boosted by who? An anonymous account tied to offshore servers, Samantha replied. It's not random. This is coordinated. Before Amelia could respond, Edward Grant, the COO, entered the lounge. His face was pale, his eyes darting nervously around the room. Ms. Carter, he said, his voice tight. We need to talk privately. Amelia's expression remained calm. If it's about the incident, you can say it here. I have nothing to hide. Grant hesitated, but eventually nodded. This isn't just about the gate confrontation. There's a faction within the company, people who've been resisting our diversity initiatives for years. They see you as a threat. Samantha crossed her arms. So they're the ones behind the smear campaign? Grant nodded. Karen was just a pawn. The real players are high up, board members, major shareholders. They're leveraging their influence to sabotage you. The video, the complaint, the social media hate, it's all part of their strategy. Amelia remained unflinching. And you let it happen. Grant sighed, looking visibly worn. You don't understand how deep this goes. These people have power, connections that extend far beyond this airline. If I pushed back without proof, they'd destroy me. Samantha's laptop chimed with a new notification. She glanced at the screen and stiffened. Amelia, they've escalated. Your personal email and phone number just got leaked online. Amelia blinked, the first sign of emotion breaking through her calm demeanor. They're doxing me? Samantha's voice was clipped. Not just you. They've included a list of your associates, family, friends, staff. This is a full-scale intimidation tactic. Grant's face paled further. This is crossing the line. Whoever's behind this isn't just trying to protect their power, they're trying to destroy you personally. Before anyone could respond, the lounge door swung open, and a young man in a suit rushed in. His expression was tense, and he clutched a folder tightly. Ms. Carter, he said, slightly out of breath. I'm Jacob, an intern. In the legal department. I found something you need to see. He handed the folder to Amelia. Inside were copies of emails and internal memos detailing coordinated efforts to derail her initiatives. The names of several high-ranking executives were scattered throughout. Where did you get these? Samantha demanded. Jacob hesitated. I overheard some things. I started digging into the internal servers, and these were hidden in a private archive. Amelia flipped through the documents, her face hardening with every page. This isn't just about me. They're dismantling everything we've built. Jacob shifted nervously. There's more. I found evidence of financial irregularities, payments to shell companies, slush funds. It's all tied to this group. Grant scanned the documents over her shoulder, his voice trembling. If this gets out, it could destroy careers. But these people won't go down quietly. They'll fight back hard. Amelia set the folder down and met Grant's gaze. Let them. I'm done letting fear dictate who gets to hold power. Just then, Amelia's phone buzzed with an unknown number. She answered, her voice steady. Carter. A low, gravelly voice responded. Ms. Carter, I'd advise you to back off. You don't want to make enemies you can't handle. Samantha leaned closer, her face tense. Who is this? The voice chuckled darkly. Let's just say I represent those who understand their place in this world. Unlike you. Amelia's lips curled into a faint smile. Is that a threat? Call it a warning, the voice replied. Keep pushing and you'll regret it. The line went dead. Samantha slammed her laptop shut. That's it. We're leaking these emails. The public needs to see what's happening behind closed doors. Grant hesitated. If you do that, they'll retaliate harder. Amelia stood, her expression resolute. They already have. But if they think I'm going to back down, they've made a mistake. Let's show them what happens when the truth comes out. The meeting room buzzed with quiet tension as Amelia Carter and her attorney, Samantha Reeves, sat side by side at a polished table. Across from them, a team of airline executives, including COO Edward Grant, watched with apprehension. Amelia's calm exterior betrayed none of the brewing storm that had brought them all here. The emails and memos Jacob had uncovered now sat in neat stacks on the table, their damning contents silently condemning the people implicated. Samantha placed a laptop in the center, screen lit up and ready. You all know why we're here, Samantha began, her tone sharp and unwavering. The emails in front of you reveal systemic corruption and discrimination, perpetuated by individuals within your leadership. Ms. Carter has generously decided to handle this matter internally for now, but that decision depends entirely on what happens next. A balding executive leaned forward, his face flushed. Are you blackmailing us? This is outrageous. Amelia cut him off, her voice quiet but forceful. What's outrageous is how your airline has treated its own passengers and employees. What's outrageous is allowing people like Karen Porter to act unchecked while silencing those who dare speak out. If you want to talk about blackmail, perhaps we should start with the offshore accounts tied to these emails. The man shrank back, and Grant held up a hand. Enough. He looked at Amelia and Samantha. What are you proposing? Amelia leaned forward, her gaze piercing. First, the individuals implicated in these documents must resign immediately. Second, you will publicly acknowledge this airline's failures and announce a plan to address systemic bias in every part of your operations. And third, she paused for effect, her voice gaining weight. I will personally oversee the implementation of those changes. The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling over the executives like a storm cloud. You can't seriously expect us to hand over control, another executive snapped. This is a business, not a charity. Samantha's fingers tapped the laptop keyboard. Oh, you're right. It's a business. One that's about to face a public reckoning if these emails go live. The screen flickered, showing a pre-drafted press release ready to be sent to major media outlets. The headline read, "Whistleblower exposes discrimination and corruption at major airline." Gasps rippled around the table. Grant shifted uncomfortably. "Ms. Carter, you've made your point. But if this goes public, it could bankrupt the company. Thousands of jobs. Will be safe," Amelia interjected. "If you act now, the only ones at risk are the people responsible for this mess." Another executive slammed his hand on the table. "This is extortion," Samantha smirked. "It's accountability. You should try it sometime." As the standoff continued, Amelia's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, a text from an unknown number. "Careful, Ms. Carter. The higher you climb, the harder you'll fall." She showed the message to Samantha, who frowned. "They're doubling down. Whoever's behind this won't go quietly." "I don't need them to," Amelia replied, her voice steady. She looked around the room, meeting each executive's gaze. "I came here today to give you a choice. Do the right thing, or prepare to face the consequences." The tension in the room reached a breaking point when Grant stood abruptly. "She's right," he said, his voice heavy with resignation. "This has gone too far. If we don't act now, we'll lose everything." The other executives protested, but Grant silenced them with a glare. "The emails, the payments, the discrimination, it's indefensible. We fix this now, or the entire airline goes under." Within hours, a press conference was held. Edward Grant stood at the podium, flanked by Amelia and Samantha. Cameras flashed as reporters fired questions, but Grant raised his hand for silence. "This airline has failed its passengers and employees," he began. "Today, we take the first steps to rectify those failures. Several senior executives have resigned, and we are launching an internal overhaul under the guidance of Ms. Amelia Carter." Amelia stepped forward, her presence commanding. "This isn't just about one airline or one incident. It's about holding systems accountable and creating spaces where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. Change is possible if we have the courage to demand it." As the room erupted in applause and questions, Amelia felt the weight of the day lift slightly. But she knew the battle wasn't over. Back in the lounge, Samantha leaned back in her chair. "You've won the first round, but they're not done with you." Amelia picked up her phone, staring at the cryptic threat from earlier. "I know, and I'm ready." The glow of the press conference cameras had barely faded when the real storm began. Within hours, social media exploded with hashtags supporting Amelia Carter. Hashtag Justice for Amelia trended nationwide, while others shared stories of their own encounters with discrimination in the airline industry. The momentum was unstoppable, but so was the backlash. Amelia sat in her penthouse office overlooking the city skyline. Samantha paced nearby, scrolling through her phone. "You've got the public on your side," Samantha said, "but whoever's behind this isn't backing down." Amelia glanced at her desk, where the folder Jacob had delivered lay open. The emails and financial records inside painted a damning picture of corruption, but she knew exposing them had made her a bigger target. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Carter," she said, her voice steady. A familiar, gravelly voice replied, "Enjoy your victory while it lasts. You may have won a battle, but the war isn't over." Amelia leaned back in her chair, her tone cool. "Whoever you are, your threats don't scare me." The voice chuckled darkly. "You should be scared. You think you've uncovered everything? You've barely scratched the surface. Walk away now, or the next time we speak, it won't be so polite." Before she could respond, the line went dead. Samantha stopped pacing. "Another threat?" Amelia nodded. Same voice as before. "They're getting desperate." Samantha frowned. "Desperate people are dangerous. We need to find out who's pulling the strings, and fast." Later that evening, as Amelia and Samantha reviewed the latest developments, Jacob burst into the room, his face pale. I think I found something, he said, placing a USB drive on the table. Samantha plugged it into her laptop. A series of encrypted files appeared on the screen. Where did you get this? Jacob hesitated. I was monitoring the internal servers like before. These files were buried deep, but they're connected to the same accounts funding the smear campaign. Amelia leaned in, scanning the documents. Bank transfers, meeting logs, and cryptic emails all pointed to one name: David Hayes, the airline's former CEO. Samantha's eyes widened. Hayes? He resigned 5 years ago after a scandal involving embezzlement. Jacob nodded. That's what they said. But these files suggest he never really left. He's been operating behind the scenes, funneling money through shell companies, and using proxies to maintain control. Amelia's brow furrowed. Hayes is the one. Orchestrating all of this? The smear campaign, the internal sabotage. Not just Hayes, Jacob said, pulling up another file. He's working with a group of executives from other airlines. They've been colluding to block reforms across the industry. Samantha shook her head. This isn't just about you. They're protecting their monopoly, keeping the power in the hands of a select few. Amelia's lips pressed into a thin line, and anyone who challenges them becomes a target. The next morning, Amelia awoke to chaos. Her phone buzzed nonstop with calls and messages. When she checked the news, her stomach tightened. Anonymous source alleges Amelia Carter's connection to insider trading scandal. New evidence questions Amelia Carter's integrity. Samantha stormed into the room, her phone in hand. This is a hit job. They're fabricating evidence to take you down. Amelia scanned the articles, her calm exterior cracking slightly. They're trying to discredit me before I can expose them. Samantha nodded. We need to get ahead of this. A press statement won't be enough. We need to go directly to the source. Amelia's jaw tightened. Hayes. He's the key. If we take him down, the rest will fall apart. Later that day, Amelia and Samantha met with a private investigator in a discreet office downtown. The investigator, a grizzled man named Marcus Reed, spread a series of documents across the table. I've been tracking Hayes for years, Marcus said. He's slippery, but not invincible. I found connections to offshore accounts, private jets, and properties registered under fake names. He's careful, but his network is vast. Samantha leaned forward. Can we tie him directly to the attacks on Amelia? Marcus nodded. If you're willing to take a risk. I've got a contact who can infiltrate his inner circle. It'll take time, but it's the best shot we've got. Amelia's eyes burned with determination. Do it. Whatever it takes. Marcus hesitated. Once we start, there's no turning back. Hayes doesn't play fair, and he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. Amelia met his gaze. Neither am I. Let's finish this. The plan was simple in theory, but perilous in execution. To dismantle David Hayes' network and expose the shadowy faction operating behind the scenes, Amelia Carter and her team needed an inside man or woman. That's where Marcus Reed's contact came in. Sophia Alvarez, a former corporate investigator with a reputation for getting close to dangerous people and uncovering their secrets. Samantha and Marcus met with Sophia in a quiet cafe in the city's business district. Sophia, dressed sharply in black with a no-nonsense demeanor, got straight to the point. I've infiltrated corrupt circles before, but Hayes is a different beast, Sophia began, spreading photos of him across the table. He's paranoid, cautious, and surrounded by loyalists who'd rather burn everything to the ground than let him fall. Can you get close to him? Marcus asked. Sophia smirked. Already have. Hayes runs a private club downtown where he hosts business meetings for his allies. I've been posing as an investor's assistant for months, working my way into his circle. Now I'm one step away from his inner sanctum. Amelia, who had joined quietly, finally spoke. And what's in the inner sanctum? Sophia leaned forward. His safe. Hayes is meticulous. He keeps hard copies of critical documents in a secure room at the club. Bank records, contracts, blackmail material. If we can get inside, we'll have everything we need to take him down. Amelia's expression hardened. What's the risk? Sophia's smirk faded. If I'm caught? Hayes doesn't just destroy reputations. People who cross him tend to disappear. Samantha frowned. This is too dangerous. There has to be another way. There isn't, Marcus interjected. Hayes is too careful. If we want proof that sticks, this is it. Amelia nodded. Then we do it. But you're not going in alone. We'll provide backup. Sophia chuckled. Backup? You planning on walking into the lion's den with me, Miss Carter? Amelia's gaze didn't waver. If that's what it takes to finish this. 2 nights later, Sophia entered the opulent private club under the guise of attending a networking event. She wore a fitted dress and carried a small clutch containing covert recording equipment. Amelia and Marcus waited in a black SUV parked discreetly down the street. The air was thick with tension as they listened to Sophia's voice through an earpiece. I'm in, Sophia whispered, navigating the club's grand halls. Hayes is here. He's in a private room on the top floor. I'll make my move once he steps out. Samantha, monitoring from her laptop in the SUV, chimed in. Security is tight. 2 guards at the main door, more scattered throughout. You'll have a short window to get inside and retrieve anything valuable. Sophia's voice remained calm. Understood. Stand by. Sophia mingled effortlessly, sipping champagne and laughing at dull jokes as she worked her way closer to Hayes. The man himself stood surrounded by a group of suited men, his imposing presence commanding the room. Sophia waited for the right moment. When Hayes excused himself to take a phone call, she slipped away from the crowd and headed toward the private room. I'm approaching the door, she whispered, disabling the first lock now. In the SUV, Marcus kept his eyes on the building. She's good, but this is where it gets tricky. Amelia's gaze was locked on the entrance. If anything goes wrong, we move. Sophia's voice came through the earpiece again. Locks down. I'm inside the private room. Sophia quickly located the safe, a steel behemoth built into the wall. She pulled a small device from her clutch and began working on the lock. 30 seconds, she murmured. But before she could finish, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hall. Someone's coming, Sophia hissed. Amelia grabbed the radio. Get out now. Not yet, Sophia whispered, her fingers flying over the device. Almost there. The footsteps grew louder, and a deep voice barked orders to the guards outside. Marcus cursed. That's Hayes. She's about to get caught. Sophia's voice remained steady. Got it. The safe clicked open, and she quickly stuffed documents and flash drives into her bag. But as she turned to leave, the door swung open. Hayes stood there, his cold eyes narrowing. Ms. Alvarez, he said smoothly. I was wondering when you'd reveal your true purpose. Sophia froze, but quickly composed herself. Mr. Hayes, I was just admiring your taste in decor. Hayes chuckled darkly. Clever, but not clever enough. Guards. Sophia moved before he could finish, slamming her heel into Hayes' shin and bolting past him. She's compromised. Marcus shouted into the radio. Move now. Amelia and Marcus burst from the SUV, racing toward the club. Inside, chaos erupted as Sophia darted through the halls, pursued by Hayes' guards. Amelia arrived just in time to see Sophia burst through the back exit, clutching the stolen documents. They jumped into the SUV, tires screeching as they sped away. Breathing heavily, Sophia handed the bag to Amelia. I got it. Everything we need. Amelia glanced inside and nodded, her expression grim. This isn't just about Hayes. It's bigger than we thought. The SUV tore through the city streets, the sound of screeching tires and distant sirens fading into the night. In the back seat, Amelia Carter flipped through the stolen documents, her hands steady despite the weight of their contents. Samantha Reeves sat beside her, laptop open, transferring files from the stolen flash drives. Encrypted, Samantha muttered, her fingers dancing across the keyboard. But I'll crack it. The real question is, what's Hayes hiding that's worth risking everything for? Amelia's voice was calm but firm. We're about to find out. Sofia Alvarez, seated in the passenger seat, looked back at them. Her normally composed demeanor was shaken, a faint cut on her cheek a reminder of how close the mission had come to failure. That wasn't just paranoia back there, Sofia said. Hayes knew someone was after him. He's bracing for a storm. Amelia's eyes didn't leave the documents in her hands. And we're going to make sure that storm lands squarely on him. A hidden network hours later, in the safe house Marcus Reed had secured, the team pored over the evidence. The room was dimly lit, with papers spread across a large table and monitors displaying decrypted files. Samantha finally let out a sharp gasp. Here, she said, pointing to the screen. It's not just Hayes. He's part of something much larger, a network spanning multiple industries. The team leaned in as Samantha scrolled through the files. Bank transfers linked to offshore accounts, secret meetings involving high-ranking executives, and even leaked communications between politicians. Energy companies, airlines, shipping conglomerates, Samantha said, shaking her head. This isn't just about protecting power in one company. They've been colluding for years to control markets, crush competition, and silence reformers. Sofia frowned. And Hayes is their puppet master? Not exactly, Marcus said, pointing to one name that appeared repeatedly in the files. Gordon Ellison. Amelia raised an eyebrow. Ellison? The media mogul? Marcus nodded. He owns half the major news outlets in the country. If anyone could control the narrative and bury stories like this, it's him. Samantha clicked on a folder labeled Ellison Correspondence. The emails revealed coordinated attacks on whistleblowers, payments to smear campaigns, and instructions to bury evidence of corporate malfeasance. This is it, Samantha said, her voice trembling. Proof of a conspiracy so big it could shake the entire country. Amelia's face was unreadable, and they'll do whatever it takes to keep it hidden. As dawn broke, the team watched in silence as the news unfolded. The media, heavily influenced by Ellison, began spinning the narrative against Amelia. Carter's crusade, a power grab disguised as activism? Former CEO David Hayes speaks out. She's destroying this industry. Amelia sat quietly, absorbing the headlines. Samantha slammed her laptop shut. They're trying to bury us before we can go public. Marcus rubbed his temples. They're playing the long game. Discredit you, destroy your allies. And by the time we get this out, no one will believe it. Sofia leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Then we hit them where it hurts. We don't just expose Hayes and Ellison, we expose the entire network. Amelia stood, her voice clear and resolute. And we make sure the public can't ignore it. Later that day, the team gathered around the table, mapping out their next steps. We need to take this directly to the people, Amelia said. Leaks, interviews, every platform available. If Ellison controls the media, we bypass it entirely. Samantha nodded. Agreed, but it won't be enough. We need hard evidence to tie Ellison and Hayes directly to the crimes. Something they can't spin or bury. Marcus spoke up. Hayes's private servers. If he's kept anything incriminating, it's there. Getting access won't be easy. Sofia smirked. It never is. Amelia met Marcus's gaze. Do we know where the servers are? Marcus hesitated, then pointed to a map. He keeps them in a high-security facility outside the city. Breaking in would be a nightmare, but it's doable with the right plan. Samantha raised an eyebrow. And the wrong plan? Marcus shrugged. We don't walk out. The room fell silent. Amelia's voice cut through the tension. Then we make sure we do. As the team finalized their plans, Amelia's phone buzzed with another unknown number. She stared at it for a moment before answering. Carter, she said. The voice on the other end was cold, calculated. It wasn't Hayes this time, it was someone new. "Ms. Carter," the voice said, "you're meddling in things you don't understand. Walk away, and we'll forget this ever happened. Continue, and there will be consequences you won't recover from." Amelia's grip tightened on the phone. "Who is this?" The voice chuckled softly. "Consider me an interested party. You've rattled a cage far larger than Hayes. If you know what's good for you, stop. Now." The line went dead. Samantha noticed the change in Amelia's expression. "Who was that?" Amelia set the phone down. "Someone trying to scare me off." She looked at her team, her voice unwavering. "But it's too late for that." The tension in the room was palpable as the team finalized their plan. Amelia Carter stood at the head of the table, her presence commanding. The stakes were clear. This was their last chance to expose David Hayes, Gordon Ellison, and the shadowy network controlling industries from behind the scenes. Samantha Reeves tapped her laptop, bringing up a blueprint of the high-security facility where Hayes's private servers were located. "This is where everything connects," she explained. "The files on these servers will give us direct evidence of collusion, bribery, and cover-ups. If we get this data out, they can't spin it." Sofia Alvarez leaned back in her chair. "What's the downside?" Marcus Reed answered grimly. "If we're caught, it won't just be bad press. They'll bury us, figuratively or literally." Amelia met their gazes, her voice steady. "Then we don't get caught." The team arrived at the facility under the cover of darkness. It was a fortress, motion-activated cameras, armed guards, and biometric locks. Sophia had secured disguises for the group, blending them into the maintenance staff on the night shift. As they approached the side entrance, Sophia whispered into her earpiece, "Security cycle starts in 3 minutes. Cameras will be blind for exactly 60 seconds. We move fast or we're toast." Amelia adjusted her cap and nodded. "Let's do this." The door clicked open, and the team slipped inside. Samantha worked quickly to disable the alarms, while Marcus kept an eye on the monitors for guard patrols. "Server rooms on the 3rd floor," Sophia whispered. "Elevators too risky. Stairs are our best bet." They moved silently, their footsteps muffled against the concrete floors. As they reached the stairwell, Samantha held up a hand, signaling for them to stop. "Guards incoming," she said, pointing to the monitor on her tablet. Amelia motioned for the group to press against the wall, her heart pounding as 2 guards passed within inches of their hiding spot. Once the coast was clear, they resumed their climb. The server room was cold and sterile, humming with the sound of endless data streams. Samantha quickly set up her laptop and began downloading files while Marcus and Sophia kept watch. "This is it," Samantha murmured, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "Financial records, emails, blackmail material, it's all here." Amelia stood beside her, scanning the screen. "This isn't just about Hayes and Ellison," she said, her voice heavy. "They've been manipulating elections, funding oppressive regimes, and orchestrating media blackouts. This network spans continents." Sophia, standing by the door, frowned. "Then why do I hear footsteps coming this way?" Marcus cursed. "We've been made. Time's up." Samantha frantically transferred the remaining files onto an encrypted drive as the sound of boots echoed down the hall. "5 seconds," she muttered. "We don't have 5 seconds," Marcus snapped, drawing a taser. The door burst open, and guards flooded in. Sophia moved first, disarming one with a swift kick while Marcus incapacitated another. "Got it," Samantha shouted, yanking the drive from the computer. Amelia grabbed her arm. "Move!" The team bolted, weaving through the maze-like facility with guards in pursuit. Sophia led them to a back exit, but when they pushed the door open, they found Hayes himself standing there, flanked by armed security. "Well, well," Hayes said, his voice dripping with disdain. "You've been quite the thorn in my side, Miss Carter." Amelia stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. "And you've been quite the coward, hiding behind your empire while people suffer." Hayes smirked. Bold words for someone with no way out. Sophia slipped a hand into her pocket, ready to act, but Amelia held up a hand, stopping her. "You're right about one thing," Amelia said. "This is the end for you." She tapped her smartwatch, and suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. "What the?" Hayes' smirk vanished. Samantha grinned. "You didn't think we'd come here without a backup plan, did you? Every file on your servers is now streaming to independent media outlets worldwide." Hayes' face twisted with rage. "You have no idea what you've just done." Amelia stepped closer, her voice calm and lethal. "I know exactly what I've done. I've exposed the truth." By the time Amelia and her team escaped the facility, the world was already reacting. News outlets buzzed with reports of the leaked files, implicating Hayes, Ellison, and their network in global corruption. Social media exploded with calls for accountability. Hayes and Ellison disappeared from the public eye within hours, their influence shattered. Investigations were launched, assets were frozen, and indictments followed. Amelia stood in her office, watching the headlines scroll across the screen. "Think they'll stay down?" Sophia asked, leaning against the doorframe. "They'll try to rebuild," Amelia said. "People like them always do. But the world is watching now. And so am I." Samantha entered, holding a folder. "What's next?" Amelia smiled faintly. "Change doesn't happen overnight. But we've taken the first step. Let's make sure it counts." As the team raised their glasses, in a quiet toast to justice, Amelia's phone buzzed with a new message. "This isn't over. You'll regret crossing us." Amelia stared at the screen for a moment, then set the phone aside. "Let them come. We're ready. Now I want to hear from you. Like this video, subscribe to stay informed, and let me know in the comments, what country are you watching from? Because this fight isn't just mine, it's ours, no matter where we come from.